Throughout its 100 years of existence, the St. Andrew High School has pioneered many innovations in teaching and learning. Indeed, it was a leader in institutionalizing the concept and practice of girls' education at a time when, for the most part, higher education for girls was not mainstreamed in the society. Swallow that. During that period, St. Andrew High School had many firsts in terms of graduates who became leaders in the professional and civic spheres. One of our strong Jamaican traditions is that of our storytelling. We love to tell a story. And today, as we reflect on 100 years of excellence, we can well imagine the stories this hallowed hall could tell, as well as the other buildings around the school. However, better than that, we don't just have to imagine and consider. We are in the company today of excellent storytellers who are happy to share their reflections on their time well spent here. Family, Dr. Blossom Amelie Nelson, the first 50 years.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. Maxine, thank you for shepherding me. I want to congratulate you on this very elegant St. Andrew, refined looking affair. Yes. I want to congratulate Elaine, impeccable as usual. The Jamaica High School for Girls opened its doors in 1925. You know, on 8 acres of land. Cecil Linder sold us this land. And the famous Cecilia Lodge with all the duppies. We inherited those duppies and we took good care of them all of these years, you know? Can you imagine me talking about duppy and it's a church school? You know, I am just a politically incorrect person. And I've always wondered why I was never invited to speak at graduation. I've spoken at every graduation of every school, whether high school or new high or whatever. St. Andrew High School never invited me. And I know why. They're not taking that risk, okay? We don't do risk. And it is interesting that it is two churches that came together to set up the school. At a time when Jamaicans were going to Ellis Island, they were leaving the island in droves, going to United States of America to seek their fortune after World War I, 1921, 1925. I think at this time we had the tuberculosis outbreak too. And Spanish flu was 1918 or that. So it was a very busy time. It was a time when ladies were shortening their skirts, scandalously so, and we were dancing the Charleston. So the Presbyterian Church, Methodist churches, they decided to come together to form the school for young ladies because the colonial people who we cuss every day wanted Black people to have an education. And not only Black people, but Black women, girls, because girls are the most devalued set of people in the world up to this day. They wanted them to have an education comparable to young ladies of society in the United Kingdom. And that is a laudable objective. So we are now what you call a top brand, much respected by those in education, the public at large. We've lived up to the motto, life more abundant. And we still have St. Andrew High. People still say St. Andrew High. Well, let me tell you, I'm so proud to have gone to St. Andrew High School that it is ridiculous. And you notice I keep coming back to myself, but you say we're telling the story. My grandchildren tell me that not everything is about me in life, and when am I going to learn that? But in the meantime, we have to suffer through it, you know? So we have the brand. We do have a brand. We have a brand in this country, and the amazing thing is that we continue to maintain that brand. So I'm just looking at some of the factors that have enabled the school to produce graduates who have made a unique and worthy contribution to nation building, to excel as leaders, intellectuals, and creatives all over the world. Just say, big up the St. Andrew High School brand. The vision, as you said, Elaine, you say both of us must have been sitting down beside one another. It was built on a clear vision that is producing highly educated, competent women possessed of all the social graces, capable of progressing into higher education in all the professional streams available. That was a gigantic vision. And as I say, I am among the fortunate to get into St. Andrew High School. How I got here is because I didn't learn anything at primary school. I took common entrance 3 times and I failed it. I was very distinguished. Maxine, my mother always tell me, don't tell people that. And I tell everybody. My brothers, 2 of them came first in the islands, get 4 scholarship each, Picture and Gleaner, and Bloss come up and Bloss cannot pass this ruddy thing. Because I spent my whole time arguing with the teacher. The teacher tell me 1 and 1 is 2. And I say, what is a 2? And she don't know what is a 2. So she go and tell my mother that I faced it. I went to 11 primary schools. And my mother started a school because she was a teacher, so I could have one that I could go to. Okay, so when I didn't pass anything, I'm sorry, but this is so interesting. I'll take it up the time. So I didn't pass anything and I was going to do sewing. You know, when you go to a lady who's a dressmaker and you take sewing, I love to sew. My father drive me up to St. Hilda's to take the entrance, and where everybody down there doing them work and I'm doing the maths, the dreaded maths. And I look at the sums and I put up my hand with this English teacher on a desk that was at least 50 feet in the air. And she looked at me and I said, Miss, I don't understand this one. What it said? Hence. Because it was an equation, you know, daddy, 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 hence. So. And you are supposed to tell them the so, but I don't know what a word is doing in the middle of a math sum. So of course they threw me out of the hall and we had to drive all the way back to Linstead with Bloss having failed significantly something else again. And then somebody find out that a school called St. Andrew High School had entrance exam and they dragged me over there. And I got in because that is where the Lord wanted me to be. And I was in the top 3 the whole time till I leave school. In those days, it was higher schools and that ain't an easy thing to pass. That was the last year of high schools. And how I pass it is because I learned off the whole of Virgil's Aeneid in Latin and I learn it off in English. And when I see a word that looked like that word that I didn't know, I translate the passage. Although I don't know how to translate Latin. But what St. Andrew teaches you is how to find a solution right in the school. So it was driven by the Protestant ethic of hard work. Nobody was running you down to give your heart to the Lord and get in the spirit. But you were in the medium. You were in a Christian medium, right? Dedication, service. It was a Christian school, but nobody was ramming religion down your throat or teaching you that this is the doctrine, right? Prayers, decorum especially. Christian teaching were always part of the socialization. It aimed to inspire women to engage in many diverse activities according to their interests, whether it be academic, sport, music, art, social clubs. And we got into all of them except for a few girls who we say, them just spoiled. I don't know who them think them was. So they didn't want to do anything. So we just isolate them and make them stay where they are. But in this hall, I've done so much gym and jump over the horse and do all kind of things up there. I sing always off key. I specialize in singing off. I have a fantastic voice, but I don't sing in no key that anybody else is singing in. Either too high or too low, or is a sharp, or is a flat, or is a whatever that is going on. But they insisted on having me in the choir, right? Right here. I did French plays right here. Drama club right here. Choral speaking. You remember, girls, you remember anybody of my ilk? Anybody around 80-ish? Around here? No, man. At every level, it provided opportunities for leadership. I had a badge for everything, my four shoulder list down to one side. I joined everything, and I was president or vice president of all of them. Okay? The one who couldn't pass combination. So this is me. I must say I got a distinction PhD if anybody's interested. So do not give up on people who don't pass common entrance. Especially, right, don't give up on them. I tell people that I get my sums wrong because I'm bright. Because when you finish it, I do one step more and get it wrong according to you. Okay? Headmistresses of the period were carefully selected by the church committee. You can imagine all them gentlemen sitting down there interviewing the likes of Miss Garcher, who was like so tall. I would not like to have been them, but they were carefully selected. And these ladies were unmarried. So I have here, but I forget that Faye Saunders was married, right? It's the first 50 years I'm talking about. Wasn't she Mrs. Faye Saunders? Yes, she was a married lady. She was the only one. But most of them between World War I and World War II, everybody boyfriend dead. And their fiancés. It's true. They all died in the war. And they decided that they're going to make their life worthwhile, right? And they dedicated themselves to their vocation. Miss Stewart, Mr. Cousin, Miss this, Miss that, all of them were Miss something. And they made you have it, you understand? So our teachers were of impeccable character, no scandal. They display at all times the values and attitudes which they sought to inculcate in the students. The boarders used to peep on them if anybody came to take them on a date and spread, but I wasn't a boarder, so I wasn't guilty of any of that, right? The boundaries of behavior were quite clear, and the teachers followed them. They were excellent role models, every one of them. And our old girl group, Maxine, we still talk about them today for hours and hours. The teachers were regularly recruited from the UK, but there were some local persons of good social class and whatever and so forth, because this social class thing was another something. Parents, teachers, and all the adults were on the same mission. The groundsman, the people in the kitchen, the training of the girls. There's a way you should behave, and that is it. So that is the leadership of the school. So we just want to remember Miss Garshore, Miss Dawson, Faye Saunders, Miss Reader. Miss Reader was a lady that was, anyway. So we had the most fantastic leaders. Okay? So the school as community, the thing that made the school what it is a thing called community. The first 50 years, it was a boarding school. I don't know when you stopped boarding. Maybe by the 70s you had, the 60s we stopped boarding. But what made the school, there's nothing that has a greater socializing effect than taking a child out of the family that it is in and putting it somewhere. It's equivalent to what the Cubans do with brigadistas. Of course, I shouldn't say that, but then I tell you, I don't know what you're going to do with me, right? And so they were in an environment that had strict parameters and boundaries so that you could develop the characteristics that the school espoused. As a day girl, I felt a little inferior because those boarders strut around with one another. Any boarders here? Yeah, man, you all have your own friend. Day girls were like we couldn't afford to be a boarder. I don't know what y'all thought, but the boarders, I think it's because they had to survive. It was not the easiest thing being a boarder. And so we had that little thing about board and day girl. As I say, I felt inferior because I wasn't part of the inside group. But because we could have lunch with the boarders in the days, right out on the veranda, where it is, over there, so somewhere. Yes, I used to like to eggs up with them and have lunch with them. Mostly because the lunch was more affordable, because my father never let me forget that he had to pay for me to go to high school. He never paid for anybody else, and he have to pay for me because I didn't get any scholarship. And he never let me forget. You have to pay school fee, and you have to pay to board you at Mrs. Coke house just because whatever, okay? So the boarding culture, though, allowed us to have a sense of community. There was a togetherness, and it gave us a sense of security. So you were not impacted by the subcultures out there. You were taught what the dominant culture was. You were insulated from the reggae that was going on in Halfway Tree. And if you found yourself out there, you have to explain what you're doing out there, right? And if you're going home, you have to go home straight. So none of this wandering around hiding in your school uniform out on the street. None of that, right? So that sense of community gave us a feeling of identity and security. My presentation is leaning more towards the social and psychology of the thing. It fostered the solidifying of our identity, because that is a period in life when you develop an identity. We knew who we were as a group. Young ladies here, students here, we identified with each other and with the school. It was each other and with the school. In our mind, all the time was how we treat each other and how we represent the school. I clap my beret on my head, and once it's beret time, I never take it off of my head. Some girls that don't want to mash up their hair, we had to wear a beret on our head. If you ever try that nowadays with all the braids and this, I don't know what would happen, but we identified. We were forced to communicate with each other. You had to communicate with each other to deal with the different personalities that people have, and to allow your own personality to emerge and to show your own leadership, your identity. That bonding and the development of an identity, both for the school and for ourselves, made all the difference as we entered adult life. It was not difficult to distinguish ourselves in the workplace and to take on higher education. When you left St. Andrew High School, you were smaddy already, okay? You were already smaddy. You knew how to speak. I don't know. It was insidious in the process. But this thing about speaking up, every St. Andrew High School has a big mouth when it comes on to taking a stand for something. And we just were that. We became that type of person who had the self-confidence to state our opinion and state our views. And there was a plethora of things to do, of course: music, art, sports, sewing, craft, culinary activities, house competition. You sew, you bake. There's something to do all the time, everywhere. And it was a very competitive environment too. Who's going to win? The various clubs and other initiatives allowed us to find a place for talents and interests, and broadened our education and built our confidence. They also stimulated leadership and engendered a sense of social responsibility. I joined the Red Cross, and I went to look for some old veteran in some hut somewhere or another. I don't know how I found myself in those places, because I was a Red Cross, and I'm going there to read to him and talk to him. I don't know. My parents just gave up on me after a while, though. I couldn't manage, right? But that was school. I was serious about Red Cross. Kendall Crash, we were downtown in the kitchen, making food for people. That's my school making me do that, right? Visiting Children's Hospital, related to the school, all school related. So as I say, the social responsibility and the service, you feel that you had to be part of what is going on in your society. You had to be part of nation building. The girls who did not participate, as I said, in extracurricular activities were regarded as spoiled and disloyal to the school. Here's the thing: the leadership of the school valued and rewarded this participation. I don't know how they know. Well, I suppose it's only about 200 and something students. but they know what you did. They know everything that you participated in and how well or how badly you did. And the school rewarded you and recognized you and gave you a sense of achievement, and it built character. I remember I got the first deportment badge that the school issued. I got it. Deportment, me? Yes. And I have it, but I couldn't find it last night. So I have it somewhere, but it's green. So maybe that's why I couldn't find it. But moving right along. The curriculum was carefully chosen, balancing the arts, sciences, languages, and allowing for cultural activities, drama, choral speaking, school choir, inter-house competitions. Our textbooks and curriculum content came from the UK. Anybody remember the red history book with the South Sea bubbling? You could not penetrate that history book, no matter how you try. It weighed a ton, and it was all about something that we did not know nothing about, and neither did we care. Of course, I failed history because I laugh in the history class and the teacher around me. Okay, so we didn't have any Caribbean literature. There are no Jamaican maps. I love geography and geology. I had to read British Ordnance Survey maps with something on it that I never hear about from a barn, and you learn all of them and you immerse yourself in the British culture, and you're a member of the British Army, you're reading them maths. That is the kind of education we got. The teaching was traditional. If you have to learn by rote, you learn by rote. If you have to study, if you have to cram, whatever it is, so long you pass the exam, nobody was checking for you. They go in this class, sit down and tell you the thing, and you learn it and you write it back. And it served us well. We applied ourselves. The competition was strong. We studied hard. Academic achievement was at the top of our list. You come here to pass your exam. You don't come here to waste time, right? Indiscipline was not an option. Insubordination was impossible. Who was going to be rude to Miss Gartshaw? Or rude to Mrs. Burroughs, or rude to, nobody was rude to any teacher. It just was not done. Even the boldest like myself never thought of it. To be insubordinate. You're gone. This is the last one here. To be insubordinate was a reflection of yourself. It wasn't on anybody, it was on you. Our school was a colonial education. We didn't have any self-governance until 1959. I'm totally colonial, and I tell my children, my family, so all the time. So just hug up that, right? English was spoken and written language. We took UK exams. We cultivated British man. Our culture was totally British, and I don't regret it, because anywhere in the world you go, you excel. The students were largely middle-class children, public servants, teachers, doctors, lawyers, other professionals. And as such, we were a homogeneous group. We had a homogeneous population, and we all knew what we were about. The democratization of education now started in the 1970s, and it changed the composition of the school, and disciplinary problems became more prevalent. And as the political landscape shifted and subcultures became more dominant, the population of the schools changed, and with it came challenges to maintain the standards that served the school well over the first 50 years. Fortunately, successive leaders, including Mrs. Reed, you see her here looking so quiet, but a powerhouse, they have risen to the challenge, and the school is what it is today. You like that? I photographed that. I think that was so nice. That's my school bag. And thank you very much for your attention.
While she's going on, our next storyteller is going to come up. Let me just tell you the difference. That is somebody who failed, whose parents had to pay for her to go to school, and she leave and reach, and she has excellence in a PhD. This is somebody who won a government scholarship, who had uniform, pocket money, books, school fee. Anything that wasn't paid for did not exist. Okay? I do not have a PhD. So it's just to show how the education system, how you start is not necessarily how you finish. And your competencies in terms of your natural gifts and skills, if you get the right support, the heaven welcome you. So this lady coming up, I'm very pleased and proud to welcome today. Her name is Professor Jennifer. Well, her name is Jennifer Knight Madden, but she's also professor. And she's here to share with us her recollections now of the second 50 years. Please make her welcome.
Good morning, Ms. Wint, Chair of the function, Mrs. Henry Wilson, Chair of the Centenary celebrations, Mr. Reed, and the board, Mrs. Reed, past principal, not my principal, but still, I was all the way back in Miss Rita. So I'm here, and of course, Mrs. Ingram and the other leaders of the school, ladies and gentlemen, students. I'm very happy to be here today. I just barely made it to represent the second 50 years. As you can see, I was back in the days when we didn't wear a whole lot of badges. But for me, when I think about the St. Andrew High School experience, this is what came to my mind. And I had not heard what Miss Wint had in her script, but wholeness. At the foundation is spiritual wholeness. That's what everything else is based on. But then there's the physical and the artistic, the social, and of course, the academic or vocational. So in terms of spiritual, St. Andrew High School for Girls is unapologetically a Christian school. And I had exposure to Christianity at home and made my first commitment to the Lord at Teen Time Camp back in the day. But I will never forget a day when I was actually in leadership in ISCF already, but we had a meeting in that room just close to the arch, and the piano was playing, and we sang The Blood Prevails. And it was just an experience. It really hit home in a way that, you know, I had not experienced before. And so coming out of ISCF, I automatically went on to UCCF and chose friends in medical school who were also Christians. And then as I, went around the world training, I wasn't hung up on denomination because this is a denomination school. So you just go somewhere where you find the word. And now I'm at a home church in Jamaica, Christian Life Fellowship, with Mrs. Bowles, of course. And but that foundation of Christianity was really built here. Now, in terms of being physical or artistic, I'm not artistic, okay? But it was important to be physically active while being academically sound. I wasn't the most talented person when it came on to athletic things, but I was a class 1 champion. How did that happen? I was class 2. A whole heap of girls from the team were in class 2. So I moved up to class 1. There were very few. They all did 100, 200, and 400. So I came first out of 1 in long jump, first out of 1 in high jump, and second out of 2 in the hurdles, which was really high jump again. My mother said, only at St. Andrew can you win athletics with your brain. We had the best upper 6 ever. Well, Miss Rita said so. I mean, I got 3 distinctions and a credit in my A-levels, and I was somewhere like 11th because we had the Jamaica Scholar, the Open Scholar, and so on. But we decided that everybody was going to be in at least 2 activities, whether it was an orchestra, a team, whatever. We were going to lead the holistic approach. And I'm going to say that the fact that a male teacher was the hockey coach had nothing to do with the fact that there were so many 6th formers playing hockey. But you had to do the best with the talent you had, with a lot of hard work. I mean, the fact that I could make a Jamaica hockey team shows you that work can work, because I'm not very talented. And I learned watching people like Michelle Holt, an old girl who recently got an award from the government, that even when you're injured, you persevere. So this is not old age, okay, just saying. It's a hockey injury from back in the day. So I've just had a knee replacement. On the social side, friends for life. So in the middle on the left is my mother, who came to St. Andrew High School for Girls and in fact was a head girl and a trailblazer in her own right, Gloria Knight. And to the right in that photograph is Georgia Booth, one of my friends that I made at St. Andrew, who I spoke to up to yesterday, friends for life. You can see her again in the picture on the right when she flew home from New York for my inaugural professorial lecture. And in that photograph, you see Mrs. Boo Smith, who came, Ermin Terrell and Sandy Boyne, who were in my year and work at the university, and Sandra Nightrees. I'm training myself not to say little cousin, my cousin, who also came to St. Andrew High School. And below, you see the icon of our 1981 Angels, St. Andrew Angels. That's our WhatsApp group where we keep in contact. So we learned how to make friends for life at St. Andrew. Now, of course, it's a girls' school. Next. So you do learn how to look for the right partner, because you want to find somebody where you can grow old together. And that is an important part of your social development, but also is critical to, next slide, producing the next generation of St. Andrew High School girls. They're both in college now. So in terms of academic and vocational, I'm a pediatric pulmonologist, but I also have been a sickle cell expert for many years. I'm interested in health services research, implementation science, and research ethics. And I think when you put it all together, it's because I'm interested in trying to achieve change to how people get healthcare, so that what is discovered in research is actually implemented, so that now we have newborn screening. 99.9% of Jamaican babies are screened for sickle cell disease at birth. And this is an outstanding achievement. So, sorry, just going back, on the right was a picture of when I was awarded a CARFA, Caribbean Public Health Agency award for just working pediatrics research a few years back. And it's an important award to me because it shows that people notice when you make a difference. And that's the thing about us as Andrews girls. We're not about filling space. We're about making a difference. Next, please. So one of the things I enjoyed when I was the chair of the Excellence in Education Committee of the PTA was this kind of newsletters that we used to send out, where we showed Andrews old girls as they were and as they are, who had been excellent. These were in science, in service, and in medicine, because we wanted to find role models for current students to say, whatever it is that you're excellent at, just go there. Be the best in what you can be. So how do I sum up the second 50 years from my point of view? Things have changed a lot over the 50 years. I mean, my daughter's experience, they each had very different experiences from the other and from me. And each person's experience was different and unique. But for St. Andrew High School for Girls, there are some foundational truths. Christ is our rock. And each of us has gifts and talents which we must make the best of. But as we run in our own lane, do not bully or belittle those who are running in theirs, who are different from you. And of course, integrity and honesty need no explanation. They're rarer than they should be, but they should be the mark of every St. Andrew High School girl and graduate. So what do I say for the next 100 years? Colette Cunningham marry another St. Andrew High old girl who recently gave her own inaugural professorial lecture, sang this song for me at mine. And I thought that it sums up what I think of in terms of our lives. And I'm not going to sing because I like you. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light their way. May the footprints that we leave lead them to believe, and the lives we live inspire them to obey. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. Thank you.
St. Andrew High School for girls has a capacity for making what might appear to be impossible possible. And it does it not just within the walls and within the campus, but it does it within every single individual who comes on the campus. I want to say that, you know, I might not have gone through the educational rigors of a PhD, but which schoolgirl would ever consider that she would be given not just permission, but the right to speak with Mother Teresa or Muhammad Ali or I could Winnie Mandela, Miriam Makeba, all of the national leaders and governor generals, all of the foreign dignitaries who would be visiting for whatever reason. So the list would be just too long to name. But I say this for the young ladies who are seated with us, who are now in the school. Keep a clear vision of possibility, because there is nothing that is impossible for you. Nothing. Having come through this process of a student of St. Andrew High School and a former head girl, I can tell you, you are going to be impeccably prepared. Enjoy it. So I would like to speak to this gentleman who is so beloved. Radley Reed was appointed board chairman in 2006. And since then, in the words of the chairman, he has not left us. He has given tremendous support to the leadership of the institution, always willing to give advice and provide guidance based on his wealth of experience in education. Mr. Reed has been very instrumental in steering the course regarding the financial affairs of this institution. In the alternate terms, when the Methodists representative chaired the board, he served as vice chair, and he makes himself available not just to staff, but to students whenever necessary. Radley, you could make your way forward, please, sir. We know and we appreciate and value Radley Reed's expertise in the matter of governance as a core requirement for the successful operation of this institution. He will speak to us on SAHS, Exponentially Excellent Institutional Governance for Excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairman of the board, Mr. Radley Reed.
Chair, distinguished educators, fellow leaders, alumni, parents, students, and friends of St. Andrew High School for Girls. For me, it is both an honor and a privilege to share reflections from the experience at St. Andrew High School for Girls as we celebrate 100 years of sustained excellence. Let me repeat very quickly. From its modest beginnings in 1925, and as you have heard, with just 21 students, this institution has grown into one of Jamaica's most respected centers of learning. Yet, it is true, success cannot be measured merely in numbers, but in the generation of women, intellectually grounded, morally anchored, and globally impactful. Of course, this is not an accident. It is the result of intentional design, disciplined leadership, and critically strong institutional governance. Today, I invite you to reflect on the theme, Institutional Governance for Excellence. It is not an abstract concept, but as a lived practice that has shaped the institution's past and certainly must secure the future. For contemplation this morning, I want to propose that this institutional excellence is supported by 6 pillars. Indeed, 6 institutional governance practices that have sustained excellence for a century in this school. I'll start with pillar 1. Governance begins with clarity of purpose. Every enduring institution is anchored in a clearly articulated mission. Centenary School for Girls was founded, and as you heard, in the Methodist and the Presbyterian traditions, with a vision rooted in faith, scholarship, and service. That clarity of purpose has been its compass across the century of change. In governance theory, mission alignment is the first test of institutional integrity. And certainly, St. Andrew has a history of integrity. Boards, of which I am now chairman, therefore are not merely administrative bodies. They are custodians of purpose. Their responsibility is to ensure that every policy, every strategic decision, and every allocation of resources are advancing the founding mission. When institutions lose clarity of purpose, they lose direction. When they preserve it, they achieve coherence and ultimately excellence. The second pillar is governance requires strategic leadership, not just operational activities. A second principle of effective governance lies in disciplined role clarity. This distinction is not just a process, is not just a process, it is fundamental. High-performing institutions are characterized by constructive partnership between board and principal and the leadership team. It's built on trust, mutual respect, and clearly defined boundaries. Over the century, this institution has had 8 outstanding principals who combined strong academic leadership with personal integrity, moral authority, and the ability to inspire students and teachers. This morning, we are happy we have with us two of our principals. We have Mrs. Sharon Reed, innovator, motivator, and builder. And the second longest serving principal for 20 years. The first principal, Ms. Garchor, served for 1 term. The second principal, Ms. Garchor, another Ms. Garchor, Margaret Garchor, she served for 32 years. And we also have with us this morning our present principal, an outstanding old girl who has just started to climb the leadership ladder, and she's climbing it well. Every board provides strategic direction, ensures accountability, and supports leadership. Research and experience alike affirms this. Where boards overreach, innovation is stifled. Where boards disengage, standards decline. Excellence is sustained when governance operates at the level of strategy, not to be too intrusive. The third, accountability as a framework for continuous improvement. Excellence must be measured, monitored, and continuously refined. Accountability in this sense is not merely compliance, it is a disciplined commitment to improvement. St. Andrew has always had effective governance systems, and St. Andrew asks these questions. Are we achieving our academic objectives? Are we responsible for stewarding resources responsibly? Are we nurturing both staff and students effectively? Are we preserving the ethos of this institution? But importantly, accountability must be developmental, not punitive. It must create a culture where evaluation leads to growth, where data informs decision-making, and where reflection drives innovation. I now come to culture as a strategic governance priority. Beyond policy and performance lies culture, the invisible architect of any institution. Culture, of course, shapes expectations, behavior, and ultimately outcomes. At St. Andrew, the culture of excellence is evident in disciplined scholarship, moral grounding, Christian values, and a keen sense of identity and belonging. Governance plays a decisive role in shaping this culture through the value it affirms, through the standard it enforces, through the behavior it models. And we must always remember, if culture is weakened, it's always difficult to restore. I now want to deal very quickly with sustainability and future readiness. As we stand at the threshold of this century, governance must turn decisively towards the future. This demands that 21st century institutions should be adaptive, innovative, and forward-thinking. And so we must ask the question, how do we prepare students for a world that is rapidly evolving? How do we integrate technology without compromising human formation? How do we assure financial institution is stable? Forward-looking governance anticipates change. It does not merely respond. It invests in leadership development, embraces innovation, builds resilient systems and infrastructure capable of withstanding uncertainty. Excellence is not only to preserve, but it is for preparation. And finally, governance deals with values. This institution, as you heard, was founded on Christian principles, provided moral clarity and stable dimensions across generation of students. Values shape decisions in moments of ambiguity. They define institutional character in times of pressure. And in an era where expediency often competes with principle, value-based governance ensures that excellence is not only achieved, but sustained with integrity. Excellence without values is unsustainable. Excellence grounded in values is certainly transformative. And in closing, let me leave with you this morning 4 takeaway principles for the next century. As we look ahead to the next 100 years, allow me to leave these 4 guiding principles. They are very simple, but I believe they are profound and must anchor institutional governance for excellence. 1, guard the mission relentlessly. Purpose is the soul of this institution. Protect it, clarify it, and let it guide our decisions. 2, govern with discipline and trust. Respect the distinction between governance and management. Strong institutions are still built on strong, respectful partnerships. 3, embed accountability as a culture of growth. Measure what matters. Reflect honestly and use every evaluation, and there are many in schools, as a pathway to improvement. And last, lead with values, courage, and vision. Let integrity, faith, and foresight shape decisions not convenience or pressure. So, St. Andrew regards governance not simply as a duty, but as a sacred trust. We inherit a legacy built with vision, sacrifice, and faith. We are called not only to preserve it, we are called to elevate it. If we remain faithful to these principles, then the next century of St. Andrew High School for Girls will not merely honor its past, it will define the future, and it will live up to its motto, life more abundant. Thank you.
For 100 years, St. Andrew High School has shaped leaders and contributed meaningfully to national development. This conference allows us to honor that legacy while mobilizing support for the next generation. Those are the words of our current principal and past student of the St. Andrew High School for Girls, Mrs. Kiva Ingram. And so now I'm very, very pleased to welcome her to share with us her thoughts on managing, teaching, and learning, envisioning the future. Madam Principal.
Good morning, distinguished guests, members of staff, friends, family, welcome. First of all, I must commend the members of the Centenary Educational Committee. They independently planned and executed this conference. Our role really was just to provide the venue. They deserve the full credit for all that you see taking place today. Can you put your hands together for them, please? It is both an honor and a privilege to stand before you today as we reflect on managing, teaching, and learning, and more importantly, as we boldly envision the future for education within these walls. This institution did not arrive at excellence by chance. It was built carefully, prayerfully, and courageously by visionary leaders who understood that education was both a calling and a responsibility. We acknowledge with deep gratitude the contribution of former principals of St. Andrew High School for Girls, women who shaped a culture of discipline, academic excellence, and moral grounding that defines us today. They established the standards for nurturing the ethos and created an environment where young women could thrive. Each leader, in her own time, responded to the needs of the changing society, strengthening academic programs, expanding co-curricular opportunities, and reinforcing the values of integrity, service, and faith. Today, I make special acknowledgement for one such leader whose vision continues to echo powerfully in our present, Mrs. Sharon Reed. Mrs. Reed was not simply a principal. She was a visionary. And I didn't put it here, but as I sat there and thought about it, Mrs. Reed is the only principal I know that turned a Tuesday into a Wednesday. I don't even know if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but we had issues with timetable and Mrs. Reed just said, all right, tomorrow is Wednesday, even though we knew it was Thursday. I should just change it around. She was visionary. At a time when many hesitated, she acted with courage and faith. She introduced bold, innovative initiatives, the Learning Enhancement Center, the Bring Your Own Device program, the expansion of the plant. These were not easy decisions. They required foresight, resilience, and a deep belief in what this institution could become. And today, we are reaping the benefits of those faith steps. When the world was brought to a standstill in the COVID-19 pandemic, many schools struggled to adjust. But because of the foundation laid by Mrs. Reed, we were ready. We transitioned into the online space, and even though it was not ideal, we remained connected with our students, continued to teach, continued to learn, continue to grow. That is the power of vision. As we look ahead to the next 10, 15 years, we must ask ourselves, what will education look like and how must we respond? At St. Andrew High School for Girls, our answer remains grounded in our fourfold focus: physical, mental, spiritual, and the social well-being of our students. This holistic approach must be supported by relevant, research-driven pedagogy. The future of teaching and learning will demand that we move beyond traditional, one-size-fits-all instructions. We must be more responsive, dynamic, and offer differentiated instruction that will blend learning and be culturally responsive. Our classrooms must become spaces where student-centered learning thrives. This involves adopting differentiated instruction, intentionally designing lessons that address different levels of readiness, interests, and learning styles. It requires making content available in a variety of formats, allowing students to demonstrate their own understanding in multiple ways, and purposely fostering meaningful engagement. It also means expanding blended learning environments, where face-to-face teaching is seamlessly integrated into digital platforms, allowing for self-paced exploration, flipped classrooms, deeper engagement beyond the timetable. As we consider the increasing number of students with diverse learning needs, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, man alive, neurodivergent profiles, we must fully embrace inclusive education. This is not optional. We must equip our teachers with the skills to scaffold instruction, implement individualized support strategies, and create safe classroom spaces. Special education training, co-teaching methods, data-informed instruction will become essential components of effective teaching practice in the future. We must recognize that flexibility is key. Not all our students will thrive under traditional academic structures. Therefore, we must begin to reimagine assessment pathways. Look at the subject load. The idea that every student must complete 6 or 7 CSEC subjects in one sitting must give way to a more personalized, humane approach to achievement. Now let us turn to the physical environment that will support this transformation. My vision for our classrooms is one of innovation and intentional design. Imagine fully air-conditioned classrooms that foster concentration and comfort. Interactive smart boards in every room where students can project their work and receive immediate, meaningful feedback. Surround sound systems that enhance multimedia learning and technology consoles with laptops and tablets and integrated controls that allow lessons to flow seamlessly. These are not extravagances. I know enough and plenty with plenty. This is what will enable modern pedagogy. But even as we embrace technology and innovation, we must remain anchored to our core mission. It was said before, the vision of our school is that our leaders will stand out in society. Our girls will stand out in society, maintaining a tradition of excellence by maximizing their academic potential whilst being socially aware, digital competent, and actively engaged citizens. They will be young women grounded in Christian and moral values, young women who will lead with integrity, empathy, and purpose. We envision that our school will be that international model for education, a place where discipline, compassion, morality, and achievement intersect to produce exceptional young women prepared to change the world. So what will it look like? classrooms driven by student-centered, inquiry-based learning. Teachers continuously trained in inclusive, adaptive, technology-advanced pedagogy. Fully integrated digital systems. Expanded counseling and learning support services for our students. Flexible academic pathways tailored to individual students' needs. Stronger collaboration, home and school, and a continued emphasis on character, spiritual growth, and service. This is how transformed vision will become lived reality. This is how we honor Mrs. Reed's legacy, not by simply remembering her contributions, but by extending them. The future of education is not something we wait for. It is something that we will build intentionally, courageously, and collectively. So let us move forward. Let us lead with purpose. Let us teach with compassion. And let us never lose sight of the incredible responsibility that we carry to not only shape minds, but lives. Because here at St. Andrew High School for Girls, we are not just preparing students for exams, we're preparing them for life more abundant. Thank you.